again.
Okay, I'm going to cut that stupid sound of me taking shots of everyone.
We can still be informal for a few more minutes. We like it.
That's okay.
Oh no, mine doesn't turn off anymore. I'm stuck with it. No, I'm teasing. There we go.
Sorry for the. Do you hear the piano in the background? I'm sorry. I hope it's not too much.
It's way too much. It's too distracting.
No, but it's not great piano. It's a 5-year-old, 4-year-old playing.
Yeah, I don't even hear it. You know, when I gave my Christie's course last week, I had a giant beard, like huge beard. And now I feel like a little beard.
I was quite surprised with this.
I haven't seen you with a beard.
Yeah, well, I've had a beard. I moved to Mexico, and so I grew a beard there, and now I'm back.
Is that where you are now? Are you?
No, I'm in New York now. I'm in New York. But last year, I moved to Mexico for like 3 months. I just got back.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay, I changed the view there. Hi, Fee.
Joan, you're muted.
I wanted to know if they don't have razors in Mexico.
They don't have razors in Mexico. Who would have thunk? I wanted to blend in with the population. I was living among hipsters, so.
You can't blend in.
I don't see that. I just don't see that.
So nice to see you.
No, it's nice to. I'm sitting in Jerusalem. The sun is shining. What can I tell you?
What a view.
What a view. Yep, that's my view.
Well, it's never bad. You know Gilly and Maya, of course, from BFAMI. Joan is a pillar of AFIM.
Hi, Joan.
Hi.
Hello, nice to meet you. Nice to see that we're joined by people from all over the world.
We got an international crowd.
It's nice. We got a fantastic topic. Let's wait a little bit. We're still early anyway.
We had 31 people. We had people from 31 different countries for our Christie's course. And it was like everyone from like Egypt to Taiwan to India. It was really incredible, the amount of people we had and where they were from.
Hey, Marie-Chèque.
Salut, ça va? Bonne chance.
Moi, ça va, c'est Elliot.
Moi qui a tellement préparé ces choses.
Elle ne change pas.
It is on time. It's good. Are we starting the broadcast, Gilly?
I'm currently having some problem with the broadcast, but
wait, it's fine. So we can wait for people to join. You can tell us.
People are coming in.
Yeah, we can wait for people to come in anyway, so they don't feel like.
And yeah,
we can wait a few minutes.
I don't know if people know this, but while we have the little BFAMI Israel Museum family here, the Swiss friends are discussing a little NFT project, potential NFT project for the Israel Museum.
The Israel Museum.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't have the latest update about it, but I spoke to them like a month ago. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely hear about it soon, I'm assuming.
Some point. Well, as soon as you explain it properly, Elliot, we'll be able to say.
Oh my God, I'm like, I just gave like a 4-day course on this, like very in depth, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be the 20-minute version.
Yeah, but, it's hard.
Yeah, I was telling them before, I have a whole presentation, but I think we can keep it more casual, and I'll try to explain, and please ask questions and interact, because I think that's the best way to learn. And the other thing that I think we can maybe do is after I'll share my screen and I'll actually show you guys like how to buy an NFT.
Nice.
Which could be cool, like a live
sale. Well done.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll buy. I don't know if I have my crypto funds are lacking.
First, you have to have those crypto funds before you can do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, on most platforms, you have to transact with cryptocurrency. Some of them are now accepting credit cards, and that works very nicely. But most of them, yes, you need to buy either Bitcoin or Ethereum.
So how big is your NFT collection, Elliot?
I've got. I started in 2018. So, you know, when I started buying these things, they were like worth like $20. You know, I think the most expensive thing I bought back then was like, you know, $70, and today it's worth 20,000. It's insane.
Well done. Hi, Anita.
Hi, Anita.
You're muted, Anita.
Oh yeah, we can hear you, Anita. You sound
Okay. Hiya, how you doing? Hi there. How's it going?
Oh, Pamela's here. Annie. Perfect. Giddy, you tell us.
Hi, everybody.
I think we should start. We can start. Unfortunately, we have some technical problems with broadcasting to YouTube, but this shouldn't stop us. So this is
recording anyway.
Yes.
So we can stream it after. Okay, so I'll do maybe a short introduction, but I can see pretty much familiar faces, so I'll go very quickly. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the BFAMI Cultural Program. BFAMI, for those who don't know, but I'm sure everybody here knows, so that's more for YouTube, are the British Friends of the Art Museums of Israel, which is a non-for-profit organization dedicated to raising funds to support educational programs run by the Art Museums of Israel. So we run quite a lot of things. We're back into action with Gilly, actually, and a fantastic culture committee. For example, tomorrow we'll have a Mayfair tour in London with lots of galleries. Max Essler, Carpenter Workshop, Sachi Yates are some of those. We'll also go to the Dulwich Picture Gallery. We'll go to Petworth to see the fantastic Miro exhibition. We'll go to the Zabludovich collection to see Trudy Hall for a curator-led tour. We'll have a breakfast tour at Sotheby's for the upcoming sales, trip to Lynn Chadwick Estate. Pretty much we do everything in England, and further afield, we also have trips in France, a wine and art tour coming up. So just feel free to contact Giddy or just go on the BFAMI website, and then just the cultural, join the cultural program, very hard to say. Today, I am really, really excited to do finally something on NFT, and for that we have the best person, Elliot. Hi.
Put me on the spot like that. Thank you for
I'll
having
do a very quick intro on you, but I think everybody knows you by now. But you're a partner at an art agency, which is a creative agency focused on unleashing synergies between global brands and the art world. And before that, you were a senior director, global strategy at Lévy Gorvy, and you worked at as the UK chairman office at Christie's. You've been involved with crypto since 2018, so very, very early on. And you created the Art and Tech Summit at Christie's. And last but not least, you've been with us, you're part of the BFAMI since forever. So Elliot, please, over to you. And today's the seminar on NFT. Thank you, Elliot.
Thank you for having me. And as I was telling Gilly and Maya before, please, I want to keep this as casual as possible because I think there's a lot of questions. So please jump in, ask questions, tell me if you want to know about a certain topic. I'll try to clarify as much as possible. And yeah, it's something that's exploded in the past 6 months, but something that really started in its full essence probably 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So I have a presentation. I'm going to go through it quickly just to kind of give you guys a bit of background. Let me just share my screen here. And again, Gilly, I think you may have to make me a host to share my screen. Sorry. But while she does, so I really started getting into NFTs, which I'll explain what they are. But when I was working, does this work? Can everyone see that?
All good.
Hold on, let me just make it full screen then. Present. Yeah, you guys can see?
Yeah.
Brilliant. So I really started getting into NFTs when I was working at Christie's. I worked in the chairman's office that Maya mentioned. And when I was there, I created something called the Art and Tech Summit. The Art and Tech Summit was this annual conference that we would host every single year. And each year it had a different theme. And each year the theme was a different emerging technology. And what we wanted to do is really explore what the potentials of those technologies had on the art world. And so 2018 was one of these years where blockchain had gone up and everybody was talking about it. And so we were very curious to explore, how blockchain could impact the art world and could potentially revolutionize it in some way. And so, it was a full day conference, 9 to 6 p.m. We had everybody there from the Victorian Albert Museum to Hans Ulrich Obrist to startups to Deloitte to, big and small companies. And we basically covered 3 use cases of what blockchain could do for the art world. The first one was using blockchain as a way to track provenance, condition information so that, it's accessible to everybody of physical works. So, if you were to buy an Andy Warhol painting, you could look it up on the blockchain. You can say, okay, this Andy Warhol was bought on this day, sold on this day. The condition of it was here, it was exhibited here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was one of them. The second one was about fractionalization. So that basically meant taking a work, let's say $1 million Picasso, and almost dividing it up into shares so that people who wanted to invest in $1 million Picasso could do it without spending $1 million. They could put in $20,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 into it. And as the value of the Picasso went up, the value of their shares went up as well. Neither of these things, by the way, were, exclusively only able to be done on the blockchain, but blockchain was a technology that facilitated, those types of interactions with the art worlds. And the third use case that we covered was what we called back then digital art, which has now become NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which I will explain a little bit. To give you a little bit of background of how early this was, in 2018, almost none of the major platforms that are operating in the art NFT realm that exists today were operating back then. A couple, Super Rare being the main one, had started 3 months before our conference. And there's a nice little story about Super Rare that I'll tell you guys in a bit. What we've been doing and art in the past 6 months in NFTs, because as Maya mentioned, it's not really our core business. Our core business is working with big brands to do product collaborations. But because me and my partner, I have a partner in China in this endeavor, are both very involved and have been involved in the NFT space, over the past 6 months, we've been doing a lot. So first of all, my partner organized the first ever institutional crypto art / NFT show that happened in Beijing 2 months ago now, Beijing and then Shanghai. It happened at UCCA, one of the biggest contemporary museums in China. And it basically gave kind of a history of crypto art and it got to NFTs. And crypto art, I'll define it later, but crypto art is basically any art that deals with themes of the blockchain. So not only NFTs, but it could have been, we exhibited sculptures, we exhibited paintings that deal with this theme of blockchain. It was a hugely popular exhibition. And again, the first institutional exhibition in the world on this topic. Just last week, we finished giving a comprehensive guide to understanding NFTs course at Christie's. It became one of the highest selling courses at Christie's. We had participants from 31 different countries attending. And that was kind of an elongated version of this seminar. It was over the course of 4 days, and we covered everything from the history of NFTs to how they became what they became today, to how does it fit into the context of the greater art world, to ecological impact, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All questions, by the way, that if you have, please ask me. I'll try to deal with them briefly, and I'll cover them a bit. And we're doing that same course in Mandarin next week for a Mandarin Chinese audience. Those have been the big public things that we've done, but also in the past 6 months, we've been working with the major art fairs, 2 of the major art fairs, 2 of the major auction houses, many galleries and many artists to help define and see if there is a potential NFT strategy for them in the future. Our answer isn't always yes, you should jump into NFTs. Our answer has actually very often been no. Maybe this isn't the right thing for you at this moment, or if you want to do this, and these are the steps that you will need to do to get there. But we have done some incredible work, some of which will be unveiled in the coming months, and you'll definitely see it in the news. And yeah, so that's a little bit of background of kind of why I'm here and why I think I know a little bit to talk about this, but let's jump right into it. And again, please interrupt, ask. There's a chat box. I'm here to explain. So NFTs, what do NFTs actually stand for? NFTs stand for non-fungible tokens. This is opposed to a fungible token. In this thing called a blockchain is just a basically big distributed ledger that is accessible to everyone all over the world. The most common thing about a blockchain is probably cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency, let's say like Bitcoin, which I'm sure you've heard of, Bitcoin is fungible. It's a fungible token. That means one Bitcoin that Alexa Harris, who I just see popped up on my screen, has is the same as a Bitcoin that Maya will have. So those two things have an equal value, and they are identical in all their properties, and they can be traded, and there is no differentiation really between the two tokens. A non-fungible token, on the other hand, means that each of the tokens has a very specific identity, something like an artwork, right? You look at prints of whatever artist, yes, it may be an edition of 10, but print 1 of 10 and print 3 of 10 maybe look exactly the same, but they're still separate entities. That's what we mean by non-fungible tokens. By the way, in this course, we're going to be talking about art non-fungible tokens, but non-fungible tokens can be anything. People are creating, NBA replays out of fungible tokens. People have created these things called crypto kitties or crypto punks that are non-fungible tokens. In this course, we're really going to focus on the art aspect of this. So creating a piece of artwork online that will be considered a non-fungible token and then be traded on this blockchain. Minting. When people say minting, it generally means the layman term of it is meaning taking that digital artwork that you have and uploading it to a blockchain or to a platform and basically saying, okay, not only have I created this on the computer, but I'm now ready to put it on the blockchain in order to exhibit or sell in some way. Gas fees are basically the fees associated with minting that artwork or buying that artwork or trading that artwork, as we'll cover. These things aren't necessarily free. The costs they're lower costs generally than the costs associated with buying traditional art, but in the past couple of months have skyrocketed into the hundreds of dollars. But there are fees associated with doing transactions on a blockchain. And a wallet or cryptocurrency wallet is basically where one keeps the cryptocurrency, which is used to buy the NFTs. This is a point also we discussed briefly before we started the session. NFTs generally are bought with cryptocurrency, things like Bitcoin, things like Ether, things like Tezos. There are some platforms now which let you purchase a cryptocurrency with a credit card, but that is still not as common. So why NFTs? What is this whole world of revolutionary world of NFTs? Why does it make sense? Or why are people attracted to it? The idea behind blockchain and NFTs is it contains 4 components. One is ownership. So previous to a blockchain, let's say, let's pick on some participants. Let's say Mary Sheck had a nice JPEG that she had created, a movie, a picture that she took, and she wanted to sell it to one of her clients. And she told the client, hey, look, I have this image. It's a one-of-one edition. It's a unique edition. I'm going to sell it to you for X amount of dollars. The client says, agrees, he pays her, and she basically sends him a JPEG file of that NFT. Now, Marie is obviously a very very honest and loyal person. She would never do this. But theoretically, there's nothing stopping her from going to the next client and selling them the exact same image. She could say, hey, look, I have this incredible picture. I own it. Nobody else owns it. Let me sell it to you again for X amount of money. And she can repeat that transaction many, many times. The buyer would have no idea that she had already sold it. The idea behind NFTs on a blockchain is that every time that a transaction occurs, it is recorded and transparent to everybody around the world. Now, transparent has an asterisk. Obviously, you won't reveal names, but things like prices and at least an ownership wallet or an ownership code will be given. So what happens is this time with a blockchain, when Mary Sheck wants to sell her picture that she took to a client, he will look up on the blockchain and says, are you the actual owner of this picture? He will see, yes, her address matches the address on the blockchain. And only then will he say, okay, he'll transfer her the funds and she will transfer on the blockchain that image to him. So he will receive that image, but also the blockchain will be updated now saying that image is no longer owned by Marie, it's owned by XYZ person. That means that if she went to go and try to sell it to somebody else, they would look it up and they would say, sorry, you can't sell this to me because I see that you don't own it. Somebody else already owns it. This is really the essence of the whole revolutionary nature of blockchain. Obviously, that covers ownership. Obviously, that covers transparency. The other big one is smart contracts. Smart contracts are basically written into the sale contracts that happen on the blockchain. So what does that mean? In Europe, we have something called artist resale rights, which happen for the most part. In America, it's more difficult. In Asia, practically non-existent. But the idea behind it is that when an artist creates a work and it is resold, the artist should have some sort of profit from that secondary sale, right? If an artist creates an artwork and sells it for $1,000, and 5 years later that collector sells it for $1 million, in theory, in the traditional art world, 100 years ago, that artist would not get any profit from the difference between the sale price that he sold it for $1,000 for and the new price of $1 million that it was just sold for. So things were instituted called artist resale rights, which basically dictated that whenever a secondary transaction would happen, the original artist would still get a commission. Well, the beauty of blockchain is that since everything is recorded and available to everyone in the world, these artist resale rights can be written directly into the contract. So going back to Marie, sorry for picking on you, but when she sells her photograph to a client and that client sells it to somebody else, she will automatically get a payment, let's say 10% fee from that secondary sale. For artists, this is potentially huge because all of a sudden it gives them the ability to monetize not only that first sale, but all future sales after. The last point of NFTs is that I think it's made art, or it's made collecting accessible to a much wider audience, both from the artist base and from the collector base. So, previously it was a little bit more difficult to buy, to find and to buy the work of an artist that, was living in a small village in India. How did you find him? And how did you, if you wanted to buy that work, how did you know that you were actually buying that work and that it was legitimate? The blockchain helps with discovery and helps verify that transaction so that when you're actually buying something, it comes from a more or less legitimate source. Going on to the next thing, NFT auction sales. So, okay, let's start with this. NFTs, I said, have really been happening since 2018. Marketplaces have existed that have sold this. The people who have been buying it have generally been this crypto community of people who have invested in Bitcoin relatively early, have made a lot of money, and have started buying things that they appreciate and like. Over the past 6 months, as I'm sure you've all seen in the news, or even 3 or 4 months, this crypto audience that was collecting NFT in a very crypto kind of manner have moved much more into the mainstream. So all of a sudden we've seen really, really major sales at a lot of major auction houses around the world. You've seen major shows by traditional galleries that are now doing NFT shows, and you've seen artists who are traditional artists who previously hadn't operated in the space all of a sudden start minting their NFTs. So just to talk briefly, I'm sure you've all seen this Beeple, every day, the first 5,000 every days that was sold at Christie's. It made that astounding price of $69 million, which, by the way, separate conversation, but if you have questions about, we can discuss a bit, because it's an interesting how that number actually got there and why that number actually got there. But this was really the thing that started this avalanche of everybody jumping on this NFT train. Sotheby's soon followed with an artist called Pac. He sold multiple editions. I don't remember exactly the amount, but it totaled $16.8 million. Interestingly, and this is a nice little fact, Pac was actually speaking to, Sotheby's was actually speaking to Pac before Christie's was speaking to Beeple. Christie just happened to have pulled the trigger faster on making that sale happen. Mad Dog Jones, which is another kind of quite famous and infamous NFT artist, obviously sold his work at Phillips, which had interesting technical applications that we don't need to get into. But all of a sudden we were seeing these major auction houses start selling works. Urs Fischer sold on Loic Guzer's Fair Warning platform. I think the first NFT, and now they're all selling on these online marketplaces. I think he created like 5,000 of them, and so each day they're selling a couple of them. And obviously, Christie's announced this CryptoPunk sale that's happening next week, in 2 weeks now, which actually maybe is worth talking about. CryptoPunks, not the sale, but CryptoPunks were really the original NFTs. Remember I said that we're talking about art NFTs? CryptoPunks were kind of the precursor to art NFTs. And the idea behind CryptoPunks was that there were 10,000 of them made, and each of them had a different characteristic. So, you'll see a sample there. Some of them wore glasses, some of them had a beard, some of them had a cigarette, some of them had a hoodie. And different characteristics had different levels of rarity. So, for example, you see the middle one, the blue one, it's called an alien CryptoPunk. Alien CryptoPunks were extremely rare, and there were, I don't know, fewer than a dozen that had that characteristic. Cigarettes were much more common. There was thousands of punks that had cigarettes. The idea was you could collect them. You would buy a CryptoPunk, it would be kind of yours, and obviously the rarer the CryptoPunk, the more value that it would have. These CryptoPunks, which I think actually originally were given away for free and then started selling in 2018, when I looked at it, when I was like looking into the space, I think the CryptoPunks were selling for about $40 or something. And I was looking at this and I was like, who's gonna pay $40 for a CryptoPunk? Like, this is crazy. Today, I think the average resale price is closer to 50,000. So that's not a bad return. But all that's to say, these have almost become kind of the iconic OG. OG is another crypto term that people like to use. Kind of original, old school precursors to NFTs. And if you look on Twitter, where a lot of these communities interact, you'll see that a lot of people are using the CryptoPunks as their Twitter avatars to kind of show, like, look, I was in this space early. I even own a CryptoPunk, which we'll get into, by the way, why people collect. I think that's interesting. I don't see, I'm seeing myself, I don't see many faces, but I'm assuming that this is all making sense and this is good, and I'm not getting bombarded with questions, so I'm going to continue. But please, if I'm missing anything, don't be shy. So, where to begin? There are many NFT marketplaces. The below list lists some of them. These are probably the main ones, and each of them has special characteristics or special focuses. Nifty Gateway, for example, is very good with editions. Super Rare only does one-of-one unique works. What I might do, just to give you guys a bit of an idea, is now I need someone to respond. Can you guys still see my screen as I'm doing this?
Yes, we can see.
Great. So what I might do is I might actually show you what a platform actually looks like. So this is a platform called Super Rare. Super Rare is again one of the earliest platforms that is prominent today. And I'm going to log in now, and I'm going to show you what it looks like to actually navigate it and buy a potential thing. First of all, if you see my browser, there's this little fox here. Remember before we were talking about wallets? This is a wallet called MetaMask. Basically, MetaMask is built into my browser, and this is the thing that keeps my cryptocurrency. MetaMask is an Ethereum wallet, and all the above lists that I had just showed you are all NFT platforms that use Ethereum, which is generally the most common cryptocurrency. So this is what my Ethereum wallet looks like. I have, it's a bit complicated, but I have, let's say, $4,800 in my crypto wallet at this moment. And this over here, you can't see the whole thing, but I just copied it. This up here, this number is basically my wallet ID. So this is the number that identifies me. And when I'm selling a work, people will check, hey, does this ID actually match Elliot, to know that I'm actually selling them that work or not. So if we go to Super Rare, it's kind of like an Artsy or anything else, or any other of these kind of traditional art world platforms, where you can see kind of works that are on there. I need to move this around. See works that are on there. You can see works that are owned by the creator or are on the secondary market. You can see works that have already sold or have never sold. These are all kind of toggles that you can do. But let's click, does any of them appeal to you guys? Let's click this Tyrone the Creator. Tyrone the Creator. I'm doing this live, so please don't yell at me if I mess up. This is the artwork. It has this, ooh. Did you guys lose me? Can you still see me?
We can see you, but we lost your screen.
Oh, just a sec. What about now? Can you see?
All good?
This is an artwork. It has a sound component to it. And this is basically the NFT that you would buy. Let me turn this on. So the artist is someone called Mason London, which if you click on Mason London's profile, it'll open this up. You can see generally there's a bit of a bio if it loads. There's a bit of a bio, there's their Instagram page, and basically says Mason London has created these 3 artworks so far on Super Rare. If they own any NFTs, it'll be in their collection. But this is basically about the artist. And it'll say, okay, right now it is owned by someone called Art Collection. That means it's sold. So if you look at the bottom, this is the history of the price. Remember, all this is recorded and publicly available on the blockchain. So it says, 2 months ago, Mason London, the artist, created this NFT. In 2 months ago, is the same time, a collector called Peter Tarka made an offer of 1.5 ETH. 1.5 ETH today is probably around $6,000, I think, something like that. The offer was made, but it was never sold. Then the collector Collection made an offer of 2 ETH, Zayteki 2.2, Collection 2.6, etc., until the point that Mason London decided to accept an offer from Collection for 2.6 ETH, which at that time was worth $4,695. Today it's worth a little bit more dollars, and basically transferred the work from Mason London, the artist Collection, to Art Collection. Sorry, difficult. So now what can I do? Basically, Art Collection, if there's a buy it now price, it means that Art Collection, the guy who owns it today, has basically said, you want to buy this? No problem. I'll offer it to you for 5.459 Ether, which is, again, just want to check one thing. Whatever, it's probably just under $10,000. Actually, it's way more than $10,000. Sorry, it's just under $20,000. And you can buy it now, and the transaction will happen automatically. Or alternatively, you can make him an offer and say, actually, 5.45 Ether is too much, but I'll offer you 4 Ether. If he accepts your offer, then the transaction gets made. This is one of the common ways to buy art, to buy NFTs, but there's things like regular auction where it's, you have to, the auction starts at 7 p.m. and the highest bidder at the end of the auction will get the work. There's different kind of ways to purchase works, but same as in the artwork, and same as in the traditional art world. In the traditional art world, you can buy something from a gallery, you can buy something at auction. These same things exist in the NFT space. So let's go back to this. Hopefully that was helpful. I think, again, we don't need to go into all of these. Probably the only differentiation that I would make is that a lot of these first four platforms, for example, are curated or gated platforms. So not everybody can just sell on those platforms. You need to be either invited, or you need to apply, or you need to have an invitation code in order to sell on those platforms. The bottom two, OpenSea and Rarible, are more free-for-alls. So anybody who wants to upload a work and try to sell an NFT can do it on there. Obviously, there's advantages and disadvantages to both. The first four generally have, by the notion of the fact that they're gated and curated, probably more prominent artists, artists that you may have heard of. The bottom two have a lot more stuff in terms of volume, but there's a lot of garbage. There's a lot of people who are, creating one NFT just to try and make some money and actually don't really care about it and aren't maybe real artists. So the first one will be easier to find artists that you like. The second one will be easier maybe to find hidden gems. We touched on this briefly before, but all of a sudden you're like, where can we actually see these NFT shows? So more and more institutions are starting to put together crypto art or NFT shows. We mentioned the one that we did at UCC in Beijing. Koenig Gallery created not only a physical show in their gallery of NFTs, but actually created a virtual gallery in a virtual world called Decentraland, and basically recreated a physical construct of their gallery where people could digitally walk inside the gallery and go see the show and purchase works in the show. Museum of Crypto Art is in a similar vein, this digital museum that only exists online in the metaverse. Sorry, I was getting a message from BFAMI. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't doing anything silly or saying anything silly. And basically, these are the ways to explore them, physically and digitally. What's interesting is how the community interacts. We're used to DMing one another on Instagram and associating with each other on Instagram. This community really interacts on Twitter. So there's even a joke about crypto Twitter where, you just fall into this rabbit hole of just NFTs. But that's really how the community is built. And you'll see that the community, the main collectors, the main artists, the main curators generally all know one another and interact quite openly and quite often on Twitter. So if you want to start getting into this community, that's the way to do it. Discord is another good way, but no need to get into Discord now. Something about the future of NFTs. I think I'm talking too much. I kind of want to open it up to questions, but I think maybe I'll cover two more things that might be interesting too. So the first question that everybody asks me is, so why do people actually collect this? And I have two answers to that. One, the example that I always like to give is that, if you have a beautiful Basquiat or a beautiful Warhol or a beautiful whatever painting, you invite someone over to your house and they sit on the couch and they see the Basquiat and they see the painting. That says something about you. That is a reflection of something that you want to represent to them. So the question is, how do people who are digitally native, who are inviting people not to their houses, but to their virtual houses online, and who are having interactions with friends online, how do you start recreating that experience? Having a physical work in your house is not going to do any good for you if no one is actually coming to your house. But if people are coming to your virtual houses, or if people are starting to identify you by your Twitter avatar, or by the way, you by what you're showing off digitally, then maybe that's what you have digitally starts saying something about you. And I think that's something that is interesting to note. And that's probably where this NFT trend started. Now, we're seeing ridiculous prices for these things. $69 million is a lot of money. So the other question I get all the time is, really, is this worth this much money? And you can give the whole answer of, art is worth whatever someone is willing to pay for it, which I think is true. But I think the more interesting aspect to highlight is that people are not actually paying these prices for what they believe the NFTs are worth today. Not only because they think it's going to accelerate in the future, but because they believe that NFTs will become so integral to the way we operate in our lives. And so the examples that I like to give on that end are two. First of all, as these worlds of augmented reality and virtual reality start to become much more commonplace, for example, Facebook announced that they're unleashing these virtual reality glasses later this year. How are we going to interact with the world? Imagine walking down the street wearing these Facebook glasses or Google glasses or Apple glasses and seeing a woman wearing a beautiful black dress, except physically she's wearing a black dress, except that through the glasses, you can see this moving dragon on her dress. And that moving dragon is actually a Balenciaga NFT. And she had to pay like $30,000 to have that quote unquote filter on that dress. That all of a sudden says something about them, and that's interesting. Or imagine, you're walking in London and you're wearing your glasses again, and you stare into your neighbor's front yard, and all of a sudden you see this 50-foot high Jeff Koons sculpture in their front yard. All of a sudden you say, wow, that's amazing. And you know that the only way that person has a 50-foot tall Jeff Koons sculpture in your yard, that, by the way, you can only see through your glasses, is because he bought it from Jeff Koons. That is the Jeff Koons NFT that he decided to then place in his yard. So the last point I would make is that I think that people are getting excited about NFTs, but not so much for what they can do today, but for what their potential, the potential of what they have to do will be in the future. I think I'm going to stop because I want to take questions and I've lectured for way too long. At the end of this, I want to talk about one exciting thing that is BFAMI related. But please ask me questions. I see two things in the chat. Can you mint art to several blockchains platforms? Yes, you can. Right now, these platforms don't have exclusive agreements with artists. So you very often see artists minting to Super Rare and then minting to Nifty Gateway and then minting to a third platform. That's very common. As this space becomes more popular, I feel like it'll become a little bit more similar to galleries, whereby they'll say, okay, you want to mint and sell on our platform, then we have to have an exclusivity agreement. But more questions, anyone?
First of all, thank you so much, Elliot. I'm unmuting so you don't have to talk by yourself and people typing questions. If people want to unmute, please join. We're so lucky to have you and explain very simply something that's quite complicated. So thank you for taking the time. And maybe I'll kick off with a question, and anybody, please feel free to unmute. You don't have to type it if you don't want to. Basically, my beginning of understanding with NFT, and I think I discovered it with you quite early on, and I was also a bit taken aback and not understanding. And what's still hard to understand is what does it bring? What's the intrinsic value of an NFT? The fact that it's digital and online. We're always talking, to me, it's just a way you could do painting, you can do sculpture, you can do NFT, it's just a media. And people are going crazy, but we hardly ever talk about the value of the work itself. And maybe can you go into that, not in terms of value and money and what people are ready to pay for, but what do you think is specific to the NFT that is bringing to the conversation in terms of content that, let's say, the other medium cannot do?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it's, again, today, I don't think people have done very exciting things in the NFT space. There have been good examples, but it's definitely not the majority. So I think your question is a very good one, is great. So all of a sudden you have this intrinsic technology. How can you push this technology to all of a sudden do something that you could not otherwise do? The Phillips Mad Dog Jones example is a good example of the Mad Dog Jones artwork that they sold is a good example of this, which I chose not to talk about because it is a bit complicated and I'm not even sure I understand all the intricacies or remember all the intricacies. But basically the underlying idea, you know what? Fine. Basically the underlying idea behind the Phillips NFT is that it's a picture of a photocopying machine. And the idea behind it is that it's a photocopying machine that's always on. So if you buy the NFT, and please, Mad Dog, Mika, if I'm getting this wrong, I apologize. Please, everybody do your own research. But this is some sort of overarching, more or less explanation for what it is. But it's a copy machine that stays on all the time. And if you own the NFT, it will start making copies of itself. So what does that mean? It means that if you buy at the end of the day one NFT, but every 3 months, let's say, 4 copies come out of that NFT. So all of a sudden, 4 months later, assuming that this is a normal process, instead of owning 1 NFT, you own 5. You own the first generation one that then gave off 4 kids. And so all of a sudden, instead of 1 NFT, you start owning 5. And those 5 that you own, or those 4 that are second generation NFTs, can continue to then create new NFTs. So the interesting part, because okay, that seems very nice, but like, so what? So what if you own 5 or 1? I think the interesting part that was added to that is that copying machines also have jams. So there is some sort of algorithm that will jam the machine. So of those 4, maybe only 3 will create new NFTs and the 4th one will jam. And maybe the one that jams creates an artwork that isn't exactly like the other 3. It has some sort of differentiation, or it has some sort of different component because it jammed. I don't think this is an exact explanation of the work, but the idea is all of a sudden you're starting to create artwork that can almost regenerate by itself, or that has different components that that you have an effect on. I'll give you one other example, which is kind of a side example. Interesting. There was, before the Beeple sale, Christie's actually had sold 1 NFT in a previous sale. The reason it wasn't advertised is because it wasn't solely an NFT. It was a physical work by an artist called Ben Gentili, a disc, and it came with an associated NFT. And that disc had a blockchain code on it, whatever. The idea behind the NFT is that you would, and the NFT was just a perfect copy of that disc. But the idea is that you would register where the physical disc was. You bought it, and let's say you sent it to China. And when you looked at the NFT, if you looked at it in the evening in China, you'd see the NFT in nighttime. And then when it would become morning, the NFT would become daylight. And so all of a sudden, depending on where you move the physical object, the digital component, the digital NFT, would react to it in such a way. These are examples, they're early examples. I probably haven't explained them perfectly because, especially the replicator one, I haven't totally wrapped my head around. But the idea is, as the technology continues, I think we'll start seeing other use cases like this, where it's something a little bit more interesting than here's a picture with some music. Does that answer the question?
Can I just comment very quickly? And again, I don't want to take over this thing, but isn't that, and I'm sorry to be a bit brutal, what's called a Ponzi scheme in terms of selling and reselling when you have one in terms of value? I mean, what does that mean for the market, that you have one that creates offspring, and it's very pyramidal?
Yeah, so again, I don't want to comment on the replicator specifically because I don't know the intricacies of it, but I'm sure that there's something about, you know, the value that the second generation isn't worth the same as the first generation. You know, you could say the same thing about a Felix Gonzalez Torres work of candies, where everyone takes a candy. Like, okay, if you can refill the candy endlessly, then, you know, isn't that a Ponzi scheme? Because, you know, you have to think of it also in the context of art. But yes, I take your point.
I'm pushing a bit because I know I can with you. And again,
Right.
I think in terms of a market, it's a valid question. But you have other questions, I think, if you want to look at them.
Let's go. What about the uniqueness of an artwork? It sounds like copy or an edition. Is that so? I'm not sure I understand the question completely, but I think there's 2 types of, I mean, we talked about unique works where each work is individually the same. We also talked about editions, where, you know, an artist will create 1 of 10. Both of those things happen in the NFT realm. The most successful NFT artists today are the ones that have some sort of unique, you know, you can tell. Like, let me show you something else. Can you still see my screen? No, you can't see my screen. I'm going to show you guys. This would have been interesting to do. There's an artist called Ferocious. Ferocious is an 18-year-old artist who is incredibly popular in this world. And you basically will know what a ferocious work looks like. You can kind of see it's similar, very brightly colored, a little bit crazy in terms of graphic. And this is a very unique kind of artist brand. So when you see a ferocious work, you'll know it's ferocious. The most popular artists are, I was going to show another one, but actually it may not be the most appropriate artist to show, so I'm not going to. But the most popular artists today are artists that have very unique and distinct personalities to them. Someone asked, I hope that answered the question, Maria, and if not, please elaborate so we can answer it better. How easy is it to create an ID to use the platforms you mentioned? Good question. Platforms like Nifty Gateway or I think Maker's Place that just require a credit card, or that you can buy things on credit card or crypto. It's literally, I think all you need is an email address, a password, and a credit card. So relatively easily. The ones that you still have to pay in cryptocurrency is a little bit more difficult because you have to actually you have to create a wallet. You have to put money into that wallet, and you basically register your ID with your cryptocurrency wallet. There's easy how-tos to do it. Like, you can watch YouTube videos and it shouldn't take you in half an hour, you can figure it out. But it's a little bit more complicated than just putting a username and password. I wanted to show one other thing, which is kind of cool. And this is a project that I know Anita is working on along with David from Data Editions. But a lot of people ask me, so how do you kind of display NFTs? And as I said today, I don't think NFTs are the most, you can display them, but it's not always in the most interesting ways. I think NFTs will get interesting once you start using things like augmented reality or virtual reality. But this is something called an infinite object. It's like a little frame, acrylic frame. This is actually the back of it. It's an artwork by an artist called Jeremy Coulard, who has actually, I think, even had a show at the Zab collection, Zabudovich collection. And this is what the front looks like. It's basically a 46-minute loop of digital artwork that he created. This stays on all the time. It has a thing in the back. I think the battery lasts like 3 hours, but you can plug it in, and you can kind of basically just leave it on your shelf. This has become very, very, very popular in the crypto community as a way to show off your art today. It's funny that I actually just received this, so I still have the plastic on it, so I apologize for that. But as I received this last week, I got an email from Data Editions that they're actually releasing their first NFTs. I think it's 3 NFTs. I think it'll come out next week. And one of the first artists who is going to mint an NFT for them is Jeremy Coulard, who, I will tell you all a fantastic story just as an aside, but Jeremy Coulard was my high school Spanish teacher. And he used to decorate his classroom full of his paintings, because back then I think he was just doing oil on canvas, and it was always like kind of these weird and wonderful things. And then like 4 years ago, I'm like, I don't remember where I saw him, but I saw this artist named Jeremy Coulard, and I was like, oh, that's like my high school Spanish teacher, and it was him. But Anita, I don't know if Anita wants to give more details about the data thing, but I think keep a lookout for that.
Yeah, check it out on data.art. And also, if you need any more information, and we're also going to give some, how to join, sort of start your mega wallet, and how to your meta wallet. Sorry, not mega wallet. Wish it was a mega wallet. It's a meta wallet. And then also, information actually how to get online and join the NFT and try and acquire one. So that would be really great. So just ask us at data.art, and thank you so much for telling everyone about it, Elliot.
Thank you for doing it. And maybe, if there's no more questions, I'll finish on this, because I think the big question that everybody asks me is, okay, so, what's going on? Is the art world just going to become NFTs? Like, what's happening? I think my view on this is as follows. I think right now we talk about one art world. Like we talk like NFTs, like it's just this big world, NFTs, and you know, it's all bundled into one. I do not actually think that is the case. I think there are two separate worlds. There is the crypto art world, crypto NFT, crypto art world, which is crypto collectors that made a lot of money in Bitcoin who are buying artists that they relate to that are in the community that basically, not always, but sometimes talk in themes or paint in themes of blockchain and this kind of community. And then I think on the other side, you have the traditional art community, and you're going to start seeing traditional artists who are going to move into this space. I think that the traditional collectors may collect some of these artists, but will generally collect the traditional artists who may go into the NFT space. And similarly, I think that the crypto collectors will collect their own, the artists from their own community. You may see some crossover, but I don't think it's going to be huge. And what's interesting right now is that this market over here, the crypto market, is enormous, and this market today is tiny. And so what I think will happen is the traditional art market will continue to grow. The NFT traditional art market will continue to grow. I don't think is a main thing. I think a lot of these artists will be creating NFTs as, you know, parts of their works. I think you're going to see there will probably be some traditional artists who move their oeuvre entirely to the NFT digital realm, but I think a lot of them will be doing mixed. So they'll still be doing their canvases, they'll still be doing their films, but they'll have an NFT component. And I think that will always be kind of an underlying part of the art world. So maybe, you know, when a gallery has a show, they'll have the regular paintings in normal sale, and then they'll have an addition of NFTs, or they'll have a couple of unique NFTs. I think it'll become more and more common, but I don't think it's going to overtake the traditional art world anytime soon. For these guys, that's a whole story. These guys, I think, are even more interested in these NFT artists than they are in the traditional art world. And for them, this world, the NFT art that is being created in the world, will be the main value driver for their collecting. And I think, you know, I think it'll be an interesting space to watch. I think now, even with the projects that we've been doing at And Art, the conversations with big institutions about getting into the space, rather than being, hey, how can we get into it to make a quick buck now, has been like, okay, so if we're looking at the space in the next 5 or 10 years, how can we start preparing ourselves to start underpinning what we do with some underlying mechanism of NFTs, not only as monetization strategies, but as things that we discussed before, like, you know, registering physical works on a blockchain, keeping some sort of track of provenance or collectors. And I think those are the most interesting conversations, rather than, you know, sorry KFC, but the KFC NFT saying, here, I'm going to sell you an NFT of KFC. Like, nice idea, but I don't think there's that much more depth to that. Is that helpful? I'm seeing blank faces, but I think the blank faces are because I did such an excellent explanation that you all have no questions and you're ready to go buy your first NFTs.
It was amazing, really amazing. Thank you, Elliot. I don't know if there's any further question, or otherwise we'll just end up the seminar now. So again, on behalf of BFAMI, Elliot, Safra, thank you. We miss you a lot. So waiting to see you in real life here in London. Thanks for explaining, and please feel free to update if you have anything on new NFTs. We can pass that on to the group, and we'll upload onto YouTube.
And I just want to say a big thank you to my colleague at And Art, who has become the one who is doing everything in NFTs, who prepared my slides and who does everything, Sabina. I think she's in here somewhere. So thank you to Sabina, and obviously thank you to BFAMI for having me, as always. You guys are the best.
Thank you, Elliot.
Thank you,
guys. Oh, and keep in touch. For those who missed it in the beginning, I said the Swiss friends are maybe working on an NFT project for the Israel Museum. So it's a little bit of free promotion for them. I don't know how far that's been, but keep your eyes and ears open on that.
As soon as we get the information, we'll make sure everybody is up to date with that, and we'll follow.
Yeah.
Bye. Good to see you all.
Very interesting. Thank you, Ellie. I loved it. Thank you very much. Fantastic. Very good.